business community complains too much. So I'm very, very pleased that government recognises all of these things and are being addressed. I stand, Madam President, this afternoon here, not just as an independent senator, apparently in the correct order, which is government, opposition, and then independent senator, so I learned today. But I also stand, as I usually get criticized, as a businessman. I'm usually criticized, a man when you're not sitting in the seat, sometimes it's even you who has criticized me for being a businessman, but I do not have any reason to be embarrassed about that. I am not a politician, ma'am. I am also standing today as a member of the Economic Growth Council. The Senator referred to the work of our chairman, Dr. Miller, one of our other members, John Williams, and I as well sit on that council. And I have a little bit of insight, therefore, as to the work that was being done, the necessity for this work, a lot that has been done by that council in supporting the work and providing information. And I would also say that it was in all of the independent research that we've done. I will also agree with the senator, the opposition senator, that it was unanimous amongst the business community and within government themselves that KIPO does not function to serve us as Barbadians. That is unanimous. If there's anything that's unanimous, it is that. So let me turn my comments to the bill itself. And forgive me, but you would know that I had on one past occasion had to use the F word in here. And I will remind you what the F word was. The word was frustration. 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 And that is what we are seeking to solve. That is what this bill is seeking to solve. Move us from a state of frustration into a state of facilitation. Let's change what it is. Another F word, yes, that is correct. But when you read, in fact, as I mentioned, I had occasion to see some of the documents that were being developed before the legislation. The first time I saw the legislation was also earlier when it was circulated to us. But the documents that came before it, as to what led to the reasons for it, and this was presented to the Growth Council, and the Business Barbados was described in there as being a business facilitation product of Brand Barbados sitting between Invest Barbados and Export Barbados. Those are the words. And it has some excellent things, goals in it, let's call it. Ensure Barbados is compliant and competitive. It's a customer service business model. Modernize practices, digital and innovative technology. Realigning, retool, and retraining the existing staff. All of these great things. 3 pillars: registry, advisory services, intellectual property. All of this seems to be what we need, plus execution. Because all of this is great words on a piece of paper until we get to actually execute it. And that, I think, is where I am concerned. I am concerned. And let me start my few comments, really, on Article 6, which describes the function of Business Barbados. So while I have the background, Madam President, of all of the things that we discussed leading up to why these changes were needed, when I actually saw the piece of legislation, I was disappointed, especially in Article 6. Article 6 spells out the functions of Business Barbados. And I won't read it verbatim, but fundamentally it says that the functions of Business Barbados are to administer the Act, advise government on matters related to the Act, and to do such things as necessary to give effect to the Act. it almost read to me like a circular reference. The function of Business Barbados is to do that which the Act is, and the Act creates Business Barbados. I would have thought we would have seen many of the other things that are described. I would have thought, like, for example, if I look at the Barbados Investment Development Corporation, CAP 340, the functions of the corporation are listed out: to advise, promote, facilitate, facilitate research, engage in export and such products, establish, expand. I could read them all, A, B, C, D, all the way down to J. Or perhaps, Madam President, if I pulled out CAP 340A, the Barbados International Business Promotion Corporation. This one, the functions of the corporation, again, in great detail: market and promote the development of international business, conduct and facilitate, encourage and facilitate investment, collaborate, a lot of detailed things. But this Act, where I am disappointed, is that it limits itself to say that the functions of Business Barbados are to administer the Act, advise government on matters related to the Act, do such other things are necessary to give effect to the Act, do such other necessary and convenient. It seemed to me that we missed an opportunity, and I'll come to what I thought that opportunity was. Again, please don't misconstrue my comments, Madam President. I started out with saying how excited I was and what a great presentation it was. But I think that the Act lacks focus. We could have had in this bill some very clear focus as to what we expected of Business Barbados. Now, perhaps before someone rises on a point of order, Article 34 in the Act is not lost on me, which does require a business plan to be submitted to the Minister, which would likely articulate some of these things. But if I take the guidance from the Act itself, the business plan, in following what the Act said, would simply say how you're going to follow the Act. It doesn't say anything more than that. It doesn't give us any details as to exactly what's going to happen. In fact, in the presentation of Senator Cummins' presentation, I was very pleased to hear a mention of two specific things which were extremely important. Number one, Senator Cummins mentioned how we're going to review all of these pieces of legislation and get it into being proper and purpose for today. Why could that function not have been an ongoing function of Business Barbados stated in the Act, that we will continuously look at this legislation? Because that's the most important thing. According to what Senator Cummins said, she would have pointed that. But no, secondly, she said, we're going to review all of the processes as to how these things are delivered. Why is that not in the Act that says that we need to do these things? So please don't be upset with me. I'm trying to make the Act better, what I would have expected that we could have seen in there. I'll move then to the functions of the board. It's made very clear in Article 8 what the functions of the board are. I had no problem with it, to be quite honest. But then when I got to Article 18, I couldn't understand what the necessity for that was. So just for those who are listening at home may not have it to their hand, Article 18 is labeled Appointment of Experts. And it's a very short article. It says, Business Barbados may appoint, on such terms and conditions as the Minister approves, such experts as it considers necessary to assist in such manner as it determines. The only reason I raise this, Madam President, is had that not have been said, was it not already implicit in the functions of the board? What did we need to know that the Minister gets to set the terms as to what these experts, as the Minister, such experts as it considers necessary? I didn't understand what the necessity was, but I'm sure I will hear what the necessity was for that. So let me get to the one area where I am particularly disappointed that this Act does not have. all of us know, as everyone so far who has spoken has said, the challenge has been the time to get things done through KIPO. We are in nowhere, it's not to say we are a Caribbean class, or we're not anywhere close to where, we're at the bottom of the table, frankly, with this. We can't get anything done. Why did we not put a requirement within the Act to have service levels set on an annual basis and targets, all these targets that we heard about the targets that we can get from Singapore, from Turks and Caicos, from Cayman, from BVI, from St. Lucia, all the places that we are competing against to keep our business. I understand that we've researched, I understand that we know what they can do. We know how long it takes for them to do these things. It is my opinion that we should have embedded within the body of this Act a requirement of Business Barbados to, on an annual basis, tell us what the targets are and tell us what the actual achievements are, and to tell us then what they're going to do to get to that world class. I'm not asking you to stipulate, it's not my suggestion to stipulate within the Act what those targets would be, because they will change from year to year. That will happen, and different legislation will create different targets. But I think with transparency, what we have missed here is the opportunity to require Business Barbados through this bill to publish, in my opinion, on an annual basis the targets, and on an actual basis every quarter what they're actually doing. We must hold them accountable for what we say we're going to do. And it's a disappointment to me that...
Madam Chair, I rise on a point of order. I've reluctantly risen, but the Honourable Senator is misleading the House. And the Honourable Senator is continuing to speak about operational matters that don't belong in legislation. I believe the Honourable Member has been in the Senate long enough that he knows that there are certain things that belong in legislation and there are other things that are operational in nature and will be derived. There is no way that a new entity being created with a new board to come in, with new leadership to come in, that the government on the outside is going to be as prescriptive in legislation as opposed to in operational procedures, as the Honourable Senator is outlining. It is a matter that he has raised on more than one occasion, and we have answered on more than one occasion. There are things that belong in legislation, and there are things that are operational. The items that the Honourable Member is speaking about are operational matters, and whether he asks it on this occasion or in multiple times that he asked it in legislation, they don't belong in legislative frameworks.
Madam President, I'm not sure exactly what matter I'm misleading the chamber on, because it remains my opinion that the legislation should have in it a requirement for the publication of targets. I'm not saying what those targets are and what the individuals are. That is my opinion. I am not misleading anyone. Thank you. So I was hopeful that we would have full transparency on that, and I do believe that while it is, in my opinion, a deficiency, I do believe that it is the intention of Business Barbados and of government to actually give us those targets, and I look forward to seeing what those targets are. I actually look forward, Madam President, to seeing when we are meeting those targets, and in fact, like other government departments where we have become world-class, we can one day say that we are world-class and we are beating the BVIs and the Caymans and the Singapores by doing things more efficiently than they are. So I look forward to that. But the only way we're going to know it is if we publish it. I would like to join, Madam President, Senator Walters, in calling for a look at Article 26.1, which I think perhaps has put two requirements together in one in terms of calling it an audit. It is a matter of record, as has been discussed in this chamber before, that the Auditor General is swamped in their in the duties that they have, and they're short on resources. I believe that the audit for financial purposes could have been separated from the requirements under the Public Finance Act, which is properly done by the Auditor General, and that we could have had this entity, which is a brand new, clean entity, and it is administering and is going to be holding companies in Barbados to requirements under the Companies Act, which requires audits to be done within periods of time, to hold itself to that own standard. And that would have been better done by a private audit on the financial side and keeping the Auditor General's responsibility under the Public Finance Act. So I will agree with Senator Walters on that. Finally, as I wrap up, I just want to be sure that we don't lose or miss that these new positions we're creating seem to be very senior to me, and I believe that they should also fall under the integrity in public life, and I assume that that will be added or to the list. Standard, I assume it is. Thank you, it would be standard. And of course, I look forward to when that will actually come in to be in and be operational, having voted in favor of it in this chamber. I will also just mention that I did note that the Senator pointed out to us that if you're aggrieved by a ruling made perhaps by the registrar or the intellectual property person, that being that it's a quasi-judicial body, that your recourse is to the court. I think we're all concerned right now that our court system is also swamped. And I was hopeful that there might have been some mechanism within here where people are not getting the response that they needed to get, that there could have been some recourse other than to go to the court. So, Madam President, those are my points on the bill. I want to finish where I started, though, and commend the government on making this fundamental change. I do believe that it is what is needed, but I do think that at the end of the day, it will be the execution of this that will be the judge of whether or not we have achieved anything with it. I have the full faith in the minister who has led the debate on this bill, that it can be done. I believe that all the stakeholders have expressed their willingness to do it. I have pointed out a couple of things which are, in my opinion, shortfalls in it. But with those few words, you are assured of my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Malalou.
Madam President, I'd like to move the suspension of the sitting of the House until 2:35 p.m.
The question is that the Honourable Senate be suspended until 2:45 p.m. this afternoon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And those against, please say no. I imagine that the appreciation was for the extra 5 minutes. We thank the Honourable Leader of the House. The House is now suspended until 2:45.